Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today, we've prepared 3 new stories for you, starting with one in which our OP faced an insufferable manager and an angry old lady. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Manager tries to steal my sale, so I let him. Background. I work at a pretty high-end music store specializing in classical instruments. My manager is pretty much the definition of an a-hole. He's racist, sexist, homophobic, steals sales, and is just generally rude. We've had multiple problems with him, from unwanted touching of female staff to one of our employees from China resigning because they just couldn't take his abuse. I've stuck around because, well, the job pays well. Anyway, my biggest problem with him is that he steals my sales. All the damn time. I'll be just about to close a sale and he'll swoop in and tell me something needs doing, then proceed to finish the sale / take the money. There's really nothing I can do about it because, well, he's the manager. Anyway, one day he goes on holiday for 2 weeks. The best damn 2 weeks of my life, and this old woman comes in. She's just moved to town and is the definition of a time waster, and a rude one at that. She complains about absolutely everything, nothing is up to standard, the strings are out of tune, blah blah blah. I spend an hour just copping abuse from her over how bad our violins are. She ends the conversation by saying she'll be back with her granddaughter to try them out. Okay, lady, see you then. Anyway, skip forward a week and the manager is back. The day after he gets back, I see this old woman walking towards our store with her granddaughter, and I immediately form a plan. I grab my manager's attention and point to her walking towards the store. I tell him that she was in last week and that she was looking at a very expensive violin, and I was sure she was going to get it today. She walks in and I say hello. Of course, my manager chimes in right after I say this, informing the woman that I had other business to attend to and that he would be taking care of her. He looks at me and says, "If that's all right with you," as he always does. I tell him it's absolutely no problem at all and tell the woman my manager will take very good care of her. I spend the next 2 hours just listening to my manager take screaming and abuse from this woman. It was amazing. He comes back to the front and tells me to go and serve her. I look at him and say, "You always want my sales. Here you go." The look he gave me was amazing. She left without buying anything, and he's been making my life a living hell ever since. But honestly, worth it. And our second story. You want me to work less? All right, you're the boss. I'm an old senior developer. The story's from the times when I climbed the ladder and became a senior for the first time in the energy industry in my country. Summer was coming. Despite my several attempts to delay a GIS, Geographical Information Systems, roughly mapping the assets / values for other integrations project, my project manager decided it was the best time to collect data in the most rainy season in a rural area. The upper management was on the move, seeking a head for the chopping block to pay for the inefficiency of the project and the money lost for nearly useless data. You can't ask for efficiency from a worker when he's working under heavy rain with a thick layer of mud on the ground and GPS spewing nonsense. What can I say? I'd warned them. I was a hard-working developer. I loved to code. I'd often do overtime without asking for anything in return, train myself about the new technologies, and do everything within my power to ease the job of the field crew. You know, the best candidate to be blamed. It all started when I decided to take my annual leave for an early holiday near the sea. A well-respected comrade from another branch called, asked for a rush job about a detailed data migration. I reached the people at the branch, spoke to the management, promised I'd do whatever's possible, and spent nearly 40 hours nonstop in front of the computer at home finishing the migration. When I got back from the holiday, surprise, my project manager wanted to speak to me. He asked me where I was the last 2 days before my holiday. It was weird, because he was CC'd on the email exchange and he actually knew. I told him I'd worked on the migration nonstop. He was having none of it. Work had to be done at the workplace. Company lawyer got called. I got asked for a statement about my absence. I can't tell you how PO'd I was. I clearly mentioned it was company policy allowing coders working from home in emergencies, VPN records and the job done easily showed I did much more than I was supposed to during those 2 days. The response to my statement was a new rule, disallowing coders from working anywhere but at the office during usual office hours. I calmly headed to HR, told them I was taking back my permission to be assigned overtime at all. In my country's laws, a written permission of the worker must be taken before he can be assigned overtime legally. When asked about the reason, I told what happened and said that I would never ever work even a minute outside my hours again. I also started taking much more care about the breaks and started using every single second of them. Off the record, demoralized as I was, I didn't give my 100% to the job anyway. I also dusted off my CV and started looking for a new job. Thankfully, this was a right decision by me. In my contract, I'd agreed for traveling for business reasons. I also had a 4-year-old daughter, another 6-month-old daughter, and we'd started living in that city for that job, so we didn't have familiar folks to look after my wife. My project manager's next step was assigning me to a meter replacement project in another city. It was bull droppings. Anything that required coding, I could do easily from where I was, and my responsibilities in the main branch sometimes required me to physically be there, especially meetings. When I asked for how long I was assigned there, the project manager grinned like the idiot he is and said, "For the time being." 2 people can play this game of contracts and laws. Our labor laws clearly indicate if a worker is assigned a job outside his city, the weekly commute should be done during office hours. So I got even happier when I learned that the project manager decided, because the job isn't urgent, I was supposed to go by train or bus, not an airplane. First week, I got on the train at 9 a.m., managing to get to the branch at roughly 4:30 p.m. Day done? Day done. On Friday, I left the office at roughly 10:30 a.m., so if they want me to work only 3 days a week, who am I to refuse? I should confess I started working at roughly 10% of my capacity during that week. I was getting very nice responses from the defense sector in my country, and I was confident I could land a job a few days after I got fired. The project manager couldn't simply back down and assign me back to the main branch, so I spent 3 weeks in another city working roughly 3 days a week. During that time, our labor laws clearly declare that one worker can't be singled out about break times if people of the same level are in similar behavior. Because a senior developer there didn't simply care about breaks and clock in and out times, I followed his example. He was untouchable with good connections to the upper management. They couldn't punish him, so they couldn't punish me. I remember once giving a nearly 5-hour lunch break with him to eat fish in a fancy restaurant with a view of the Bosphorus. That senior developer was also a very heavy smoker and coffee addict. Once an hour, he'd call me outside to accompany him to have coffee and a smoke. Later, he said he was supposed to look over my shoulder and check my job. He couldn't care less. He'd instead sit in my room for hours at a time, speaking about times past, our families, office gossip, anything but the job itself. I was kindly asked to quit, but it was past my 2nd year in that company. That meant they were supposed to pay me roughly about 3 months' pay as severance. Then roughly another 2 months as notice if they wanted to fire me instantly. There was absolutely no recording in that meeting, so I calmly explained I'd keep on my 3-day relaxed weekly shifts until they fired me. During my 4th week, I was called to the project co-manager's room and got fired with my severance and penalty for the notice. 15 minutes after I left the office, I was accepted to my new job. The project in the branch office got completed successfully, mostly because there was no need for a developer there at all. The project manager didn't get fired, he just got demoted to engineer. I don't know what happened then. The company's still alive and well, so I believe the upper management revised their policies. Hopefully, I'll never have to mess with such a manager again in my life. What makes me sad is there was no justice boner at the end. On the other hand, you played them for fools, and it sounds like the project manager lost out. And our last story. Restaurant scams me, I burn their reputation to the ground. So about a month ago, I applied for a sushi restaurant called Yoshi's, and I got a text from their hiring manager, and we chatted about my availability, location, start date, yada yada. She then asked me to write a review of general Japanese food to show I knew what I was talking about and could upsell customers. Fine. I write a long review and send it to her. She then sends my tiny link URL and tells me to post it there before I would be invited for an interview. I click it, and what do you know? It's the Google page for a whole different restaurant all the way across the city. So I read the reviews, and they'd done this to 30 or so people in the last 2 weeks at the different locations franchised to the same crazy owner. I was PO'd to say the least. This happened peak COVID in my state. People are unemployed at staggering rates, struggling to feed their families, and these a-holes are scamming potential hires for fake reviews. Being unemployed, I had some time on my hands, so I screenshotted our convo and posted it all over social media. They went from a 3.4 to 1.2 in a few hours, with more than 70 new reviews about their crappy behavior. I was satisfied with that and a report to the Attorney General here. But then I noticed the owner had managed to get all the reviews removed. So at that point, I went full nuclear. I contacted every media outlet, reported them to every on-site board, emailed corporate about it, and reported them to Google. I managed to get one of our local news outlets to cover it, and Google ended up removing all their reviews altogether. Scam me and countless others during a global pandemic? I'll ruin your business's reputation for your crappy behavior. I guess revenge, like sushi, is a dish best served cold. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.